At the beginning of 2020, I was approached by Rocky Nook, who are a US publisher, and they asked me, did I want to do a book with them? And as it happened, I had a whole book pretty much sketched out, ready to go. I just needed to find the time to sit down and hammer away at this thing and get it out. And it felt like a good opportunity. This would drive me and give me the motivation to get this thing done. So I agreed. And then the pandemic hit and we were all forced to sit at home. And the silver lining for me to that incredibly big, gloomy cloud was that it gave me all the time in the world, no excuses now, but to sit down and write the best book I possibly could at this stage in my journey. So here it is. This is the book that I've written for you. It took me about 7 months to finish, from June last year to January this year, and I honestly couldn't be more proud of it. And I thought what I'd do in this video is I would read you the first shorter chapter so you can get a flavor of what this book is like before you place your order. But before that, let me tell you a little bit about what this book actually is. This is my creative life philosophy that helps me stay a mentally healthy and motivated maker of things. And even though I'm primarily a photographer and a filmmaker and now I suppose an author, this book isn't for people who do the same things as me. It's for anybody who makes anything. You could be a musician or a poet or an actor or a writer or a designer or a painter. It doesn't matter. You could be amateur or professional. This book, if you make things, is for you. If you're a regular on this channel, I probably don't need to say this, but I know when some people hear the word philosophy, they think it must be lots of complicated talk or ivory tower thinking. But I don't think that's good philosophy. Good philosophy is earthy, it's grounded, and it's gritty, and it answers the very real questions we face in our lives. So even though in this book I might be presenting ideas from greater minds than mine, I'm also going to ground it at every stage in my own story and show you where forming this philosophy has really made a difference to me. So at this point you might want to hit pause and go make yourself a tea or a coffee and settle in, because now I'm going to read you the first shorter introductory chapter of this book so you can get an idea of what it's all about. You ready? First chapter is called Order. It's blue hour, and the final glow of the day is fading fast. I'm lying with my skinny 9-year-old frame on the flat of my back in a wide sandy riverbed, staring up at the inky purple sky as stars fast flare into view. The sand still holds the warmth of the day while a cool breeze begins to blow overhead. There is an earthy, spicy smell in the air, and the sound of crickets ring all around. In this remote corner of Africa, in the middle of the Botswanan bushveld, there are no city lights to steal from the stars, so they begin to blaze against the black of night. First the brighter stars, then smaller ones hove into view, and soon countless pinpricks of light of various intensities and colors make themselves known. Directly over my head I can see the Milky Way smeared across the heavens, a great band of light, and as my eyes adjust, it separates into a million tiny luminescent pinpricks, the dark trees overhanging the river like an organic black frame of spidery shadows. I would usually give a casual upward glance at the night sky, and with unseeing familiarity consider it, as most of humankind always has, like a great sheet spread above, a firmament. However, not this night. Days before in school, we had been shown a picture of our galaxy as a spinning disk made up of a multitude of stars in infinite space, our little planet positioned on one of its spiraling arms. Our teacher told us that that is what we see when we look up into the night sky and see the Milky Way, that we are in fact looking from our position on one of its limbs into the rotating center of its colossal disk. Lying there, looking up, I suddenly recall that fact, and what was a peaceful minute of childlike contemplation turns into a moment of absolute terror. I feel like I'm falling, tumbling into the infinite. I'm no longer lying on the still warm sand of a dry riverbed looking up at the firmament of the night sky. Now I'm lying pinned to a spinning ball of rock, looking down, not up, into the plane of our galaxy with its billion suns as it whirls its way at breakneck speed through unending space. And I feel as if whatever force holds me in place may let go at any second. And if it does, I will be released to fall into endless nothingness. It scares the hell out of me, but I stay with it. It's also utterly exhilarating. My heart is pounding in my chest at the enormity of the thought, of the fact. There is a pull to that same nothingness as well, a beckoning. It takes considerable courage, but I slowly stretch out my arms and legs, forming a star shape on the ground in an act of letting go, of releasing myself to fall. What gave me the courage to stretch out my arms in the face of that gaping void was order, the order which holds the chaos at bay. This moment I've described is burned into my memory because it was the first time I can remember feeling those two things in such a palpable fashion, the chaos and the order. The chaos of the abyss in front of me and the order that held me firm to this rock as it has every day before and since. At that moment, I realized how powerful that order is, the proof being that it could give a 9-year-old such courage in the face of such a big truth. I had faith in that order and believed it would hold me in place even as I stared it in the face. But it was also the moment I stopped naively trusting in the permanence of that order. I questioned it for the first time. I played with the idea that our planet could slow its spin and that gravity could fail. I imagined that day millions of years hence when the sun would expand to swallow us up. Another fun fact our teacher had gifted a class of 9-year-olds with that week. It was a moment when I realized it could all fail and chaos could take over. Things could change. Things will change. It's not really important for our purposes here what you attribute that order to, whether it's some high power with religious structures built around it, or just the immutable laws of the universe. Either way, in our most awake and aware moments, we are in equal measure wonderstruck and terrified by the way things seem to just work, without our assistance and often without our understanding. Ironically, I think it's this fascination that drives both priests and scientists into their respective careers. But even as we attempt to examine and explain the order, whether analytically or spiritually, we also know chaos is out there, and we know deep down it will ultimately win. If you come from a religious tradition, you will likely subscribe to some kind of vision of Armageddon or apocalypse or Ragnarok. It's the historical mystics who predated the scientific method, reminding us through countless stories told to millions of listeners in hundreds of cultures that this order won't last. Things will ultimately move toward chaos. If you're a scientist, you believe in entropy. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that left to its own devices, the universe and all things will move into greater states of disorder over time. But that's the point. We human beings don't leave anything to their own devices. We control, we influence, we change, we bend and even break, and at our very best, we create. And that's what we're here to talk about. Fashioning and forming, molding and forging, making, creating. Let's start by trying to answer the question, why are human beings such creative creatures? Why are we compelled to make? My humbly offered answer to that impossibly large question is that we make because we are constantly trying to pull order from chaos. I think we collectively intuited, long before science gave us the language, which way the universe is bending, and every act of creation on our part is in defiance of entropy. Every time we pick up a paintbrush and choose complementary hues to apply to the canvas, or arrange elements through our camera viewfinders to create a pleasing composition, or press fingers into wet clay to wrestle form from a shapeless lump, we are bending things back toward order and wrestling them from chaos. Even as I sit here now, furiously typing away on this keyboard, every click and every clack feels like a tiny battle won, bending the universe imperceptibly away from disorder and toward life. I don't know about you, but the days I make something are the days that leave me feeling the most fulfilled and that lead to the nights of the most peaceful sleep. We are driven to create because it comforts us in the face of impending disorder. We know that no matter how much we make, we cannot ultimately turn the tide. But we can make things to help us make sense of life. We can make things to ward off the darkness. It's why cavemen painted their walls with scenes from their daily lives, and in the case of the works discovered at Luzot, dating back some 20,000 years, even used the very contours of the rock to render their images three-dimensional. They daubed depictions of animals, humans, and even abstract symbols onto the wall in beautiful detail, perhaps to feel more in control of the chaotic forces that dictated the direction of their lives. It's why ancient Mesopotamians carved the Epic of Gilgamesh into tablets 4,000 years ago. They created stories to address the great questions and attempt to describe the things they didn't understand. Why are we here? Why is life so full of pain and hardship? What do we do with the time we are given? What are our limits? How do we face our own mortality? It's why Bronze Age humans erected stone circles 5,000 years ago. Experts are still arguing about the exact reasons they spent huge amounts of time and energy to cut colossal stones, hauling them across the landscape in order to upend them in circles. All we have are theories, but I think it's safe to say from the way these structures are often aligned astronomically that this was some form of tangible expression of the way they saw the universe and their place in it. Perhaps more than that, it made them feel more in control of the reality they found themselves in. Of course, these structures could also have had religious significance, but even then, what is worship, ritual, and sacrifice if not an attempt to first personalize those forces that bring rain to crops or an end to sickness, and then bargain with them to work in our favor, to bargain with chaos and bring order? These historical acts of making weren't just about interior decorating or architecture or having something to read in the bathroom. Creating helped these people deal with and describe a world in which they felt that heady mix of competent and completely powerless, and in that regard, precious little has changed. We are still making things to communicate what we intuit to others, to pull answers from questions and order from chaos. But this is where art differs from science and religion, because in their own ways, each of the latter seeks to formulate order in certain terms. Science is trying to wrestle order from chaos through rigorous examination and testing, looking for patterns and attempting to explain them through the prism of the rules we have established to date. But what about everything we can't explain scientifically? Well, for many, this is where religion steps in and seeks to explain all the mysteries we haven't formalized in scientific laws. Similarly, each religious branch tries to answer all the great why questions through their own particular lenses, and then most attempt to codify order into our lives by giving us the rules for living in an orderly fashion. However, science is a long way off in answering all the questions we have, and for most, religion is too prescriptive and limiting. So what do we do with our human experience? How do we share what we intuit about life, the universe, and everything when we don't have scientific proofs or religious doctrine to support what we believe we've seen, felt, or experienced? We make. And we hope that those who experience what we've made will feel the truth of what we've shared resonate and hum within them as well. We might not even be able to put clearly into neat descriptive prose what we've shared, but that's the beauty of art. It's not a medium that requires certainty. As human beings, we're trying to describe what we collectively know, to create a sense of safety in numbers as we stare into the void together. When we reach the end of our traditional descriptive powers, it's time to weave collective meaning from poetry, painting, writing, dancing, photographing, filmmaking, storytelling, building, singing, animating, designing, baking, performing, printing, carving, sewing, sculpting, and a million other ways we daily create life out of chaos and share it with each other for comfort. Of course, if art is our attempt to pull order from chaos in the small ways we can, ultimately it's as useless as trying to plug leaks in a failing dam with our fingers. In the long run, we will fail in our attempts to hold chaos back. Skip forward to the end of our collective story, flick through the pages to the final chapter of time, and we lose this battle. But there is something wonderfully human in the knowingly futile attempt, and no better way I can think of to spend a life. I honestly can't wait for you to read this book. It really is the thing that I've done over the last decade of my life that I'm the most proud of, and I think it really represents well what I think about our creative journeys in general, and specifically it captures the stories about the things I've discovered that have helped me along the way. And I've got high hopes that it will make its way into the right hands and really help a lot of other people as well. So please go ahead and pre-order your copy if you think this is something you might be interested in or that it could help you. You can find it easily online in most parts of the world. Just search locally where you normally buy books. It might be Amazon or Foyles or Barnes & Noble or Waterstones or W.H. Smith's. You should be able to find it. If for any reason in your territory you can't find it online locally, I will leave a link down below to the publisher so you can order directly from them and they will ship it internationally. If you want, you can also help me by recommending this book to anyone you think might find it interesting or helpful, and that might be friends or families, mortal enemies. I really don't mind. Whoever you think needs this book in their life, please tell them about it. I know for me, if I hear a recommendation from a friend about a book, I'm much more likely to listen to that than just because I saw a random ad somewhere. So please be a part of helping me to get this book into the right hands. The official release date is August 10th, so anybody who orders a digital copy of this book, like on Kindle through Amazon, you will get it on August 10th. But just be aware that everywhere else it might take a little longer to get to you. I know at the moment that there are lots of issues with shipping worldwide because of COVID and Suez Canal backup, so just be aware it might take a little longer to get to you, but your seller, whoever you bought it from, should be able to give you updates, so contact them and ask them to let you know when you can expect your book to be delivered. And it's a little early to talk about it because none of you have actually read it yet, but the biggest way you can help me is once you've read it, if you've enjoyed it, please remember to jump onto whichever platform you bought this book from and rate and review it, because those reviews really help to boost this book on the algorithm of those shopping platforms. So you can help me out hugely by remembering, and I will remind you, to go on those platforms and leave a review and rate the book. So not long now, and I can't wait for you to have a copy in your hands so you can spend some time with it, and I can start to get some feedback and we can get some discussion going around the ideas in this book. And as I say, to get your help, to get this book into the right sets of hands, because I really have high hopes that this book can do a lot of good for a lot of people.